You take these kids who are 17, 18, 19, and 20 years old, you break them down in boot camp for 3 months, then you ship them to Marine combat training. Seemingly doesn't seem like a winning business model until you get into the inside and you realize that literally every single thing that you do, there is an SOP. When you have an asset, don't sell it. Hold on to that asset. It's far better to borrow against the asset than it is to sell it. The moment you sell it, you've extinguished it.
Welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. I'm your host, Debra Chantry-Taylor, and I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs and their leadership teams lead a better life through creating a better business. I bring guests on the show to share the experiences, the highs and the lows of entrepreneurialism, and the tips and tricks that they've learned along the way. Some of these people have been through some massive success and also some massive failures, and today's guest is definitely one of them. So Keith went from missing his kid's childhood while being overseas and as an active duty Marine to building a real estate empire that's let him coach Little League and never miss a family dinner. He's the founder of REI Automated and a serial entrepreneur who's invested in 34 states, raised over $10 million in private capital, and helped more than 400 students achieve time and financial freedom for real estate. He is also absolutely obsessed with systems and processes. And you'll hear that, I should say, in the podcast. Today, he's going to share how he lives and breathes systems and processes and how they can actually set you free. I'd love to introduce Keith Gillispie, who is the co-founder of REI Automation. Welcome to the show, Keith. Lovely to have you here from sunny Florida, I believe.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. As always, we've had a quick chat behind the scenes, but I want you to introduce yourself to the listeners and tell them a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and how you got to be in business.
I'll start off by telling a story then. So I was in 2013, I joined the Marine Corps, and let's fast forward 2 years. So I joined the Marine Corps. I'm going through basic training, Marine combat training. They ship me off to A school and I get stationed at my first duty station. I'm there for a year. And then they ship me overseas. So I go overseas and I come back. It's 2015. I try to unlock my door, and you know those little flippy doodads that hold the door shut from the inside? Try to open the door. Well, my wife had the thing on. So I'm like, oh. And so I knock on the door. She comes over to the door. She opens it just through those little 2 inches. And she says, I need you to close your eyes. And I'm like, I've been gone for this whole time. Like, do we have to be playing games right now? The last thing that I want to do is close my eyes. Are you kidding me? Give me a hug. And she's like, no, close your eyes. So I closed my eyes. She shut the door. She opened the watch. And she said, come in and hold out your hands, but keep your eyes closed. So I had my left hand over my eyes. I decided, okay, all right, hold out my hands like this. And she places something in my hand, and I start to feel it, and it's round. It's like a cylinder. And so, I just got back from a Marine Corps trip overseas. It feels like a pipe bomb, like one of the bad things that blows you up. And so I stop and I go, it's not going to explode, is it? And this is up on YouTube if anybody wants to watch this video. My wife recorded it, actually. It's not going to explode, is it? She goes, I don't think so. And so I feel around for another 5 or 10 seconds. I'm floundering. I have no idea what this is. She goes, okay, you can open your eyes. So I look down and I'm holding a baby bottle with a positive pregnancy test on it. And that was her way of breaking the surprise that she had kept for me the whole time that I was gone.
Oh, wow.
And she didn't want to tell me over the phone. She wanted to tell me in person, right? So our daughter was born and I was there for the birth. And then the next month, I go back overseas. And I come home. Now it's 2017. And I come home. Same exact thing happens. Try to get in the door. The latch doohickey is closing and I knock it. She opens. I need you to close your eyes. Mind you, like 18 months has gone by. Like, I don't really remember that this has already occurred once. This is not deja vu for me. So, okay, fine. Close my eyes. And she recorded this one as well. And she says, open your mouth this time. So I open my mouth. She sticks this cookie in my mouth. But there's like a little bit of plastic in my mouth. I'm like, oh, there's plastic in my mouth. She goes, I'm sorry. And so I'm chewing it. And she goes, you can open your eyes. And she's holding this cookie like this close to my face. And so I'm trying to figure out what in the world she just fed me. And I didn't realize that also in her hand was a pregnancy test in a sandwich bag. And as soon as I saw that, you can see the realization in the video because I just dropped to my knees. And you can see the look in my face of like, man, I've screwed up twice now. I have missed my wife's pregnancy 2 times in a row. And for anybody who has kids or your wife has had kids or you have had kids, your trimesters are kind of important. And I had missed them both, right? And so this was particularly difficult for me because for the next several years, I went overseas 13 times and came back. And every time my wife had to reintroduce me to our children.
I thought you were going to say for a moment 13 pregnancies. I was thinking that's a lot.
No, terrible. She had to reintroduce me to my children. And because I was always gone, they didn't really know who I was. And so this was really hard for me because my dad died when I was 8 years old and I'm an only child. So it's just me and my mom. I was raised without a dad. And so here I am looking at my kids. At the time, they were 3 and 2 years old. I'm looking at my kids and I'm saying, man, my kids are growing up without a dad, just like I did. Except I don't have the excuse of being dead. I'm alive and I'm well and I'm choosing to live this lifestyle. So that's when things kind of shifted for me. And in 2016 is when we got started in real estate. So I purchased into a course. Well, it's way more than a course. It's called Fortune Builders. I paid a lot of money to be in a program. And then I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Many people, maybe even yourself, a lot of people have read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Signed up for Fortune Builders. Believe it or not, I even hired Robert Kiyosaki's team with Rich Dad Coaching, and then hired for, John Martinez and Grant Cardone and Dean Grazios, a whole bunch of big name people here to teach me how to do real estate. And to this day, I continue to buy courses. I literally just bought one last week. So I've done like 57 courses since I got started in 2016, 9.5 years.
Does the law of diminishing return ever come into this in terms of, or do you still find you get things from those?
I definitely get things from it, but yeah, I hit the law of diminishing return a long time ago. Now I'm really just looking for the one nugget that's going to return that. Sometimes it's only a $200 course. Sometimes it's a $20,000 course, right? But I'm looking for the one nugget. What's the one thing that you know better than I do that's going to save me hundreds of thousands of dollars or years trying to figure that out that will make this investment worth it? So anyway, I'll fast forward. 2026 is where we are now. 5 years ago, 2021 is when we started REI Automated, which was the software and education and coaching company that came out of my real estate investing. So we invested in real estate. We still do invest in real estate, but it took me about 4 years to figure that out. Once I figured it out, my mentor was like, dude, you're actually really good at systemizing this stuff. You should sell this as a software. And you should probably coach people with it as well. Like, you'll make a killing. And we haven't made a killing from it, but it is a lot of fun. And we have served a lot of people because of that. And so now we have an education, software, and coaching business that teaches people how to invest in real estate. And I've done deals in 34 states. Most people cannot say that. And we've raised a little over $10 million that we put into real estate and just recycle that money with every asset that we sell. And we teach people how to do it.
And I want to pick up on something you said there, which you also shared with me before we came on the podcast. So you are the system and process guy, right? You have a natural affinity towards that. Where did that come from and how do you use it now?
This is going to sound super crazy, but I think that I got it from the Marine Corps, which anybody who, is stateside, who listens to you is going to know what I'm talking about. Like, the Marine Corps is kind of known as like, we're the big buffoons of all the branches. Like, we're the dumbest bunch. We get made fun of all the time, that we are dumber than a box of rocks, and we chew on crayons for fun. Red is always the best, by the way. But the system of the Marine Corps is kind of crazy, and I'll break it down fundamentally in a way that nobody has ever heard before. 1776 is when we began as a nation in the United States. But the Marine Corps was actually, the inception was November 10th, 1775. We were birthed before the Marine Corps. And so if you were to think about it, we have been alive, if you will, for 250 years. That's a winning business. But let's talk about the business model. You take these kids who are 17, 18, 19, and 20 years old. They know nothing about life. They just graduated high school. You break them down in boot camp for 3 months. Then you ship them to Marine combat training for another, month or whatever their specialty is, right? And then you hand them an M4, a rifle, and then you ship their ass to Afghanistan and you say, go fight America's battles. Seemingly, this doesn't make sense, right? They know nothing. They're brand new, like they're barely adults. They can barely take care of themselves. They make the stupidest decisions ever. Yet we're going to put the fate of America in their hand. Doesn't seem like a winning business model until you get into the inside and you realize that literally every single thing that you do, there is an SOP. It is written. It is visually illustrated. There's standards for how you do every single thing. And there's somebody who will jump down your throat if you're not doing it correctly. And so I've taken that principle of building systems for literally everything that I do in both businesses. Everything has a written SOP. It's visually illustrated with a mind map. And we have a video showing you, walking you through step by step, this is how to do it. And then we have a report on that person doing the thing so that I can see on a weekly basis whether or not they did it.
It sounds like it's just straight out of the traction book in terms of process.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But that's fantastic. And I think it's the key to freedom. And it's a thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand because they say, but I hate process. I don't want to get involved in process. And it's like, well, you're not going to get your freedom unless you actually have that.
A lot of people think that systems or processes or dare I say rules, don't put me in the box. I don't like being told what to do. Hold up. So if I were to say, hey, this is actually a guarantee in my business. Follow my direction for the next 4 months. I will make sure that you get 5 properties under contract worth $150,000. Or I will pay you back not only what you paid me, but also I'll match whatever you put into marketing. So you spend no money. There's no risk to you other than your time. People who hear that, they go, yeah, tell me what to do. Oh, everyone flipped real quick. It's like, hey, I know the path to success. All you have to do is follow me. People like to be told what to do. And that's what systems really is. Here's the blueprint. Do this and good things will happen. Do that and bad things happen. Pretty easy choice.
Nice. Now, I know that you said that you also like to bring processes and systems into your personal life as well. I'm keen to hear how you use them in your personal life, just for a bit of fun.
Okay, well, let's go from one extreme to the other and just go really deep in the family life. So I have 2 children, 8 and 10. And from ages 1 and 2, we established 3 rules of our household. Rule number 1 is be a good listener. Rule number 2 is be careful. And rule number always is love each other. To this day, 9 years later, 100% of the time that either of our children ever do something bad, get yelled at, be disciplined, whatever, from either me or my wife, 100% of the time, it's because they broke one of those 3 rules. And chances are you broke 2 of them simultaneously. So that's a system when it comes to like parenting of guys. It's really easy, right? Imagine it's a 2-year-old, and then a 2 and a 3-year-old, and then a 3 and a 4-year-old, and then a 4 and a 5-year-old. They're always one year apart. Nonetheless, you're starting really, really, really young. You have to simplify it so it's something that they can memorize. And it needs to be so easily understood and so basic. People say it needs to be so easy a 5th grader can read it or understand it. Well, dude, what about when they're not even in 5th grade? What about when they're not even 5? It needs to be so simple a 2-year-old can understand. Hey, you're not being a good listener. You broke the rule. There's consequences when you break the rule. Hey, you're not being loving to your brother. Hey, you weren't being careful when you just decked your sister. You broke one of those 3 rules. you're in trouble. Let's go back to the rules. We still do.
It's interesting. Listen to you sort of say all of this. All of this is so relevant in business too, right? The simplification. We tend to overcomplicate things. We say that we don't want to sort of be put in a box or follow systems, but why would you bother reinventing the wheel when so many people have been there before you, know how to do it, and they can say, hey, here is a framework, here is a proven process, this is what we do, we can guarantee it for you. And yet people still try and bend the rules and still try and do it a little bit differently. And I see it within my EOS practice. It's like the EOS stuff works. It's simple. It's just a framework. But they go, but we're going to add this, or we're going to fine tune this, we're going to do this a little bit differently. It's like, why? Why do that? It's going to work if you just do it the way it's meant to be done.
There's an ego part of it, right? The power, the control of, I want to have my thumbprint on it. I didn't create this and I want to make it my own. At least that's something that personally I struggle with as I've gone through. And it's like, man, I want this to be mine. Well, at the end of the day, kind of like McDonald's, like I don't like their food, but their business model is proven. If you were to go to Melbourne McDonald's and order I'm assuming you have McDonald's. I don't know.
Maybe. Of course we do. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Feel bad for you. They outlawed it. But if you were to go get a Big Mac and I was to go in Orlando, Florida and get a Big Mac and we were to compare it and we were to look at it and describe it, they're going to look the same. If we were to smell it and describe it, it's going to smell the same. If we were to bite into it and taste it and describe it, it's going to taste the same. Well, how in the world? We live in two different parts of the country. How can they look the same, smell the same, taste the same? It's easy. It's the same ingredients. It's the same process down to how long is the patty on the thing before it beeps and what is the temperature of the skillet down to how much freaking mayonnaise they squeeze out on everything is exactly the same. That's what we need to do in our business.
And I don't think it does it. It doesn't mean that you can't have it with your own thumbprint, as you describe it as, because that's your core values. That's the way you operate. So your systems and processes are the framework that keeps everything consistent and takes away the reliance on one person or a person to do something. It means it can be scalable, but it's the way that you operate the business. I think your core values and what you do is where it becomes your own unique thumbprint.
I very much agree.
Okay. I can't help myself because obviously I'm passionate about the whole EOS thing. And you shared with me that you hired a business coach many, many years ago. Tell us a little bit about that story with your business coach.
So I got started in real estate in 2016 and I struggled. I feel like I was just slogging my way through business for the first 3 years. In 2019, I hired this business coach. His name was Carlos, and I paid him $10,000. And I didn't even have the $10,000. I had to split it up on 3 different credit cards. And I was so embarrassed when he asked to take my money. And I was like, hey, so I have a negative net worth and we're going to be putting this on credit cards and I don't even have enough available credit on one credit card. So can you process 3 separate transactions? And he's like, yeah, dude, no worries. So of course he would say that. But when we got into it, it was his job over the next 60 days to tell me what I needed to hear and not what I wanted to hear. And we met 2 times per week for 2 months. And I think it was supposed to be the first 2 sessions, but it ended up being the first 3 sessions. He was just asking me questions, just grilling me. I was in the hot seat. He was trying to discover everything that I was doing in the business. What was I not doing in the business? Why was I doing certain things over a different way? And on that third session, Carlos was like, dude, your business is a wreck. You're a mess. I don't understand how you're getting anything done because you're so busy doing nothing. Everything that you're quote unquote focused on, number one, is unfocused. You don't have any direct reports. You don't have any processes of doing anything. Therefore, and we had 8 people on the team, mind you. So there's 8 of us. I think this analogy even comes from the book EOS, but it's like 8 people in a boat all rowing separate directions. So the boat is just like spinning in a circle, or it's like, what are we doing? We all need to be rowing that way. That way is north. Let's go that way. We need to be we need to be aligned. And so he said, you're not focusing on revenue. Like, you're focusing on all this stupid stuff. And nobody is held accountable to what they're doing. And he says, there's no way I can possibly coach you into fixing this. Like, this is something that you're going to work for a year on. I need you to read this book, Traction. And after you're done with Traction, I need you to read what's the more basic book?
They've got the What the Heck is EOS, but they've also got yeah.
He actually had me read Traction first, and then What the Heck is EOS? I don't know why. It was really, he said that it was so that I could read it myself and then pitch it to the team with What the Heck is EOS. It's super simple, like this is how you need to say it to get them bought in, and then have them read EOS. And actually, to this day, it's still required reading material in my company. We all read it once a year. And we've been doing that for, this year will be the 7th year. We've done it for 6 years previously. So I paid him $10,000. We met twice a week for 2 months. And my biggest takeaway was read Traction. And I'm certain that he gave me other resources, and I'm certain that he told me other things, but I don't remember a single one of those things. The most important thing that I took out of that was read EOS. And I think that year I read it 3 times back to back. And like, when I say I'm like a disciple of EOS, we have our level 10 meetings, and it is the same exactly what is in the book. Here's the number. Here's our win. We're going to go over our core values. We bring up the VTO. We help homeowners. Well, depending on which business I'm in, we help homeowners sell their house, or we help real estate investors build and scale a profitable business by implementing education, systems, and support. And we do that and then we go popcorn. We go our core values. They say core value, core value, core value, core value, core value. So we've gone through our 6 core values. And then we jump into, the regular meeting. We have our quarterly meetings. We have our offsite annual meetings. Everything to this day is just the same as when I read the book in 2019.
So I need to ask you, because I have to be honest, and I've said this a couple of times on the podcast. When I first tried to read Traction, I actually found it boring as batshit. And maybe it was, I think it was the headspace I was in. I was running an event center, and there was a few things going on. I just couldn't get into it. And so, but I got hold of Get a Grip instead, which is a business fable. And being a Patrick Lencioni girl fan, I love the business fable stuff. So I got hold of Get a Grip, and I literally consumed it in 2 hours, because I was like, oh my God, this is just like, wow. And then I got hold of Traction, because then I understood what it was about, and then it became the Bible that I fell in love with and ended up implementing and then becoming an implementer. But what was it that kind of grabbed you in the Traction book? What was it that was the aha moment, I suppose?
I would say system, but then if we were to drill down, it would be organization. If we were to drill down further, it would be KPIs. And if we were to drill down further, it's splitting KPI. When I look at the KPI, there's 2 things that really has made a difference for me, and I grabbed onto it, and I haven't let it go, because it's been pivotal to the success of both of our companies. When I look at the KPI, number 1, I know exactly what needs to be done in order to make that KPI get better. So no longer is it, hey, something's wrong in my business, and I don't know what's wrong. Now I know exactly what's wrong, and I know how to fix it. And then one step further is, not only do I know what is the actionable, executable item that I need to do to fix this in order to drive this in the right direction, but also who's the direct report who's responsible for this. Is this the lead manager? Is it the acquisition manager? Is it the transaction coordinator? Is it the dispo manager? Whatever it is, right? Because each person is tied to a number, right? And that's their KPI. That's the number that they're in charge of reporting. And whenever it's messed up, we know who's going to be in the hot seat for IDS that week.
That's perfect. I describe them as the levers. You start to understand the levers, which means you can actually slow down and speed up your business depending on what you want or need at the time. Once you've got that level of understanding, business becomes easy. We've got the rules of the game. We know how to win. Let's just do more of that. Perfect. Okay. And so the businesses you've got now, so you're still running on EOS. That's fantastic. Businesses don't grow the way we think they're going to grow, though, right? So I know I always draw, when I first work with a client, I draw the beautiful hockey stick curve on the board, and I say, who's actually worked in a business that grew like this? And because I did a lot of work with startups for many, many years, and now with established businesses, I can hand on heart say, big businesses, small businesses, startups, no business ever grows in that beautiful hockey stick curve without their ups and downs. So what's been the biggest kind of, I won't call it a failure, but the biggest challenge for you in growing the business?
They would be one and the same, actually. This would go back to late 2019 when I had hired that coach, and it bled. definitely bled into 2020. But basically, I bankrupted myself. At the time, we had, well, actually, it kind of goes back to the very beginning when I told that story of coming home and getting the baby bottle. That was the moment that we started working on our credit. And both me and my wife, we were super young. We didn't really have good established credit. And so we got like on other people's credit cards, like I got on my aunt's credit card and my adoptive grandmother's credit card, just as like authorized users, right? Not actually having the physical plastic. But we got our credit scores up to like 820 or so. And that allowed us to get 20, I think it's 24 credit cards with about 350. It was almost 300. Maybe it's only like $330,000 of utilization. And by 2020, I had maxed that out. And I don't know if you know what the minimum monthly payment is on $300,000 of credit cards, but it's a lot. Well, here's the thing: when it's 0% interest, it's really easy to calculate because it's 1% of the debt that's owed. So it's $3,000 per month. But then after 6 months, 9 months, a year, I even had one credit card that went 18%. Once those swapped over from 0% to, I think our lowest one was probably like 18.99%. And they went all the way up to 29.99%. That $3,000 payment, it went up to like $13,000.
Just to pay the interest.
Just to pay. Well, that was principal and interest, but it's not very much principal, right? That's just the minimum monthly payment. So at the time, we were flipping houses, we were wholesaling houses, and my wife is a realtor, so she was listing the houses as well. We were kind of double dipping on these deals, but we could not do enough deals consistently to pay for that every single month. And that's when I realized, like, okay, so on paper, I have a negative net worth and I have negative cash flow. And we have savings, but it's because we've been putting our cash towards the savings, not towards the debt. And that's the only reason why I was able to float myself, was because we had a little bit of cash and we had a whole bunch of debt. And we're throwing my active income and my wife's active income towards these monthly payments. But when you have north of $10,000 just for not even including your living expenses, then we had rent and kids and food and blah, blah, blah. It made it very, very difficult. And so I think 2020, that was also the year that I was getting out of the Marine Corps. I got out of the Marine Corps in December of 2020. And so here I am, like I've been on the struggle bus for 4 years now, 2016 and 2020. And we've just been accruing debt. And now I've made the decision, I'm going to get out of the Corps in December of this year. I have 11 months. December 1st is when I got out. I have 11 months to figure my life out. And believe it or not, we paid off 100% of the debt. It was $330,000, and we paid off $330,000 that year.
Congratulations. Yeah.
But that was my lowest of lows, actually, was January of 2020. At that time, that was my lowest of lows in my whole entire life, of like, I'm just drowning and I see no way of getting out of this. And just like going back to what my business coach, Carlos, said, you're just sitting there spinning your wheels, doing a whole bunch of busy work, but not really getting anything done. So that was the shift that I needed to eventually get out of debt.
And that is a great story. And I think it's important to think about that is we all go through tough times. I had a similar kind of situation, not a dissimilar number actually. So I had an event centre in Auckland that unfortunately had to close due to COVID, because you can't really run events when you're not allowed to leave your house. Yeah. And it had a massive weekly, monthly rent, as well as other expenses. And we'd spent a lot of money refurbing the place, everything else. And by the time we closed it, I owed about $340,000. And at the time it was devastating, and I never thought I'd ever get to pay it off, but it has all been paid off. And I think it's almost like Dr. Benjamin Hardy talks about using time as a tool. It's like when you know you have to do something within a time frame, you just have to change your thinking and go, I can't do it. How can I do it? What do I need to do differently to actually get it done? And I'm guessing that's how you and your wife approach things as well.
Yep. Just as Tony Robbins says, there's a big difference between having a disempowering statement versus an empowering question. And so he uses the the bad example, people ask themselves, why am I so fat? Well, that's a horribly disempowering question. And your brain is literally wired to answer it. So if you ask a bad question, you're going to get a bad answer. Whereas, or you can even, it's even worse to make that a statement rather than asking a question, making it a statement. But he talks about the separation between a disempowering statement and an empowering question. Well, what's the single most important thing that I can do today to live a healthier lifestyle? That's a great question. So yeah, how you just said, well, no use to me to say, I'm not going to get out of this. The question is, how do I do that? I know it may be hard, let's figure it out.
How and who as well, right? Yeah. And I think it's actually it's part of the IDS process in the US as well. I think that a lot of teams, when they're looking at an issue, particularly a negative issue as opposed to an opportunity, they automatically jump to it's an issue and this is what's causing it, rather than remaining curious about, hey, look, our sales are down. I wonder why our sales are down. What's causing our sales to be down? As opposed to going straight into our sales are down. Oh, it's the economy, or the sales are down. Oh, it's the marketing team. If you just reposition and approach it from a curious child perspective and keep open-minded about what could possibly be happening, I think it gives you a much better chance of finding out what the real root cause is and getting to a good solution that will get rid of that.
Yep, agreed. That's actually one of our core values. So we have 6 core values, and one of them is be curious, ask more empowering questions.
Okay, so you've done a great job of turning things around, and congratulations on that. And I have to say, you must say congratulations to your wife for sticking by you through being away at the Marine Corps, having babies on her own, all that stuff, and living through debt with you as well. I'd love to meet her. She's obviously a very good lady. What are you most proud of in the business now?
There's 2 things that immediately come to mind. The first is the business can more or less operate without me. And the second is I feel like I have control. I realize that it's an illusion of control. You don't actually have control because you don't have control over macro things like timing or market or technology or, like AI is going crazy and the real estate market is doing different things. I don't have access to change the cycle of the real estate market, for example. But when it comes to the business, you were talking about levers. I think that's the word that you used earlier. I feel like I have control over the business and that there's actually a steering wheel. When before it was kind of like, those old robot things that you could turn them on and they would go until they hit the wall and then they flip over and they just go in whatever the opposite direction was. That's kind of how I felt like my business was. Like we're just ramming into walls and continuing to go. But I think that's what's really cool is I don't really do anything in the business. And I don't mean to say that I don't work. I'm on hour 11 right now. I got up at 5 a.m. and it's 6:14 for me. I'm working my tail off. I'm not saying that I don't work. When I say I don't do anything, all of the interworkings of the business, all of them, I genuinely cannot think of one single thing that I do in the business that is necessary for it to continue working. It is all done. It is 100% systemized by other people. We have 13 staff members that work behind the scenes, and everybody gives me the credit for it because I'm the face of the company. But really, it's not me at all. The thing that I spend my time on, what I really love doing, is innovation. Like, what are the creative things that I can be doing right now that's going to, I'm not talking a 10% increase or a 50% increase. What is the drastic shift that I can do that will take the business to a 2x or a 3x trajectory 1 year from now? Those are the things that I like spending my time on. And as a means to an end, I create systems and processes and SOPs and documentation. As I'm finding new things, I'm like, oh, we should add this, and oh, we should add this. And it's all of that incremental things that add up over time. The problem is I'm not really good at doing repetitive tasks. I don't know if you kind of feel that sentiment. I hate repetitive tasks. Maybe I'm not disciplined, but I'm disciplined in my own areas. Just mundane, stupid, minutious tasks. I'm going to pass that off to an assistant. I'm not going to do it. I have a rule of 3. And if I have to do something 3 times, I will. and I'm gonna get really good at it. I'm gonna get as good as I possibly can. And then on the fourth time, before I do it, I'm gonna write down the process, like I'm gonna type it out, and then I'm gonna visually illustrate it to get really clear on the process and see if there's any weird edge cases on like, what if this happened and what if she does it this way or whatever, right? I'm gonna map it all out. I'm gonna go back to that documentation that I just wrote out and revise it. And once I have this ironed out, shoot a video walking through the entire thing. And now we have the SOP. And after that fourth time is the last time I will ever do it. Ever, ever, ever. And at this time, we have about 300 SOPs that run the business. From the tiniest things to the biggest things.
Does that become overwhelming for the team, or how do you get them to actually take accountability for these things and want to follow them? Because just like we said earlier, humans want to put their own personal stamp on things, and they've got, I could do it better or I could do it differently. So how do you keep those systems and processes alive in the business and ensure that, I mean, they obviously have to be changed at times when things change, but just making sure people are actually following them?
Sure. So something that I consistently challenge the team members, well, it's that thing that there's several core values, but there's two of them that I'm going to bring up. Number one of them is be curious and ask more empowering questions. And the second one is become the best version of yourself and live an exemplary life. So if we were kind of to smush these two core values together, I am always asking myself questions on what can be better so that I can turn this thing into the best thing possible. Not just for me, for the sake of me doing this task, but also for the good of the company, also for the good of the team members, right? Communication needs to be had. I need to be hooking up the next person that's down the pipeline, so on and so forth. And so how do I get them bought in? Well, to be honest, I hire people that like following direction, that are not, if we were to think about like not just a DISC profile, a lot of people do DISC. I like using predictive index. And so when I'm hiring for specific assistant jobs, I hire for profiles that they're not captains, they're not mavericks, they're not the ones like me who are leading the charge. Instead, they're the scholar, or they're what's the one that like protects things and makes sure that everyone's abiding by the rules. I forget, guardian is what it's called. The guardian. There's different like psychological and sociological. I don't know the right word. There's profiles of your brain. And basically, I'm going to hire the person who is best positioned for this job. Like you're wired to do that. So I think that I set people up for success by first hiring the right types of people for the job. But then after that, those SOPs, I keep them really short. If there's a big task, I just did one yesterday. Whole task is probably about a 15-minute task, and it needs to be done monthly. So we separate all these things into daily tasks, weekly tasks, monthly tasks, quarterly tasks, annual tasks. So this one goes into the monthly column. And it's a 15-minute task, but I broke it up into 3 separate tasks. And one of those separate tasks was probably about 6 minutes. So I broke it up into 3 and 3, right? So in total, you have a 3-minute video, a 3-minute video, a 2-minute video, and a 2-minute video, something like that. They're really, really short. And the SOPs, I don't know, maybe the most complicated one had 7 steps. So when I say, we have I think it's an old army term, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, but I even take that to an even more elementary, literally school, a more elementary kindergarten brain of, I want to teach my kids how to do this stuff. And so a little proud dad moment for a second. So here in Florida, we love outdoors. And as a Marine, I love guns. So you put those two things together, you get hunting, right? And so I take my son hunting. He's 8 years old. And this kid, if I were to bring him in here right now live on the podcast and I were to say, Cold, Alex, do 20 push-ups, do 50 jumping jacks, he's going to be all riled up. I'm going to say, tell me your weapon safety rules. He's going to go, before he states it, he's going to go, treat, never, keep, no. Now to you, that means nothing. Treat, never, keep, no. What are you like, just naming random words? Well, It's the first word of each of those weapon safety rules. Treat is for treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Keep your weapon on safety until you're ready to fire. So each one of those treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Keep your finger straight off the trigger until you're ready to fire. I mean, he says it faster than the Marines say it. He's so good at it. And so when we got done with our last hunting trip, I was pressed for time and I was making dinner for everybody. And the weapons were all dirty, right? There's a lot of sand here. And we have a trailer that's behind the bike, and that trailer throws dirt up on the guns, and there's just sand everywhere, all over our guns. I said, Alex, mind you, again, he's 8 years old. I said, Alex, disassemble the weapons, clean them off. When you're ready for inspection, call me out. Call me inside, because I'm manning the grill. Got it. 20 minutes later, Dad, I'm done. The fact that he can disassemble an M4, it's not really an M4, but it's an M4 type, AR-15. The fact that he can disassemble this as an 8-year-old kid, the fact that he knows his weapon safety rules. Why? Because we've broken it down so simple. Whether I'm doing it with my kid in like a hunting environment or whether I'm doing it with a virtual assistant with an SOP, breaking it down to the simplest, most elementary school level is so important. You're not patronizing people. You're not making them feel stupid. You are absolutely 100% of the time setting them up for success.
I love it. It goes back to your 3 rules for the kids as well. Simple as easy. People just get it. Yeah. Okay, fabulous. So we can see that, well, actually what I love about this conversation is I think it's helped people understand that even though you might think that you're not a systems person, actually most entrepreneurs are, because we do look for better ways to do things. It's kind of why go into business and why we start the things that we do. I think we just tend to overcomplicate it and we get scared of it because we overcomplicate it. If you treat it the way that you do and say, hey, look, once you repeat something more than 3 times, there should be a process for it. It gives you that trigger point. Okay, right, that the 4th time we're writing something down and then keeping it simple. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Yeah. Another system for making a system. Yeah. And I think there was a guy from the 4 Seasons, I think his name was Theodore Sharp, but he talked about systemizing the predictable so you can humanize the potential. And we've been talking about that the whole thing, right? Where we're systemizing it so the stuff that needs to be done that's really important just becomes the way we do it. And then you bring your humanity into it through the way that you act, the way you engage with people, your core values, all that beautiful stuff around it. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. That's a really cool quote. I like that.
Yeah, well, not mine, unfortunately, but it's one that I remember. Okay. 3 top tips or tools for the listeners. I hate people, I love these podcasts, but I want them to go away and kind of go, what can I do with this? So what would you give them as the 3 top tips or tools from your experiences?
I don't know if this is going to be applicable to your whole audience. However, I am an investor, right? Specifically, I'm a real estate investor. However, I invest in not just in real estate, but I invest in people. I invest in software. So something that I think I see, and I'm also trying to bring in that you have maybe not just US-based listeners as well. It's cool that you travel all over the place, and EOS is global, right? So I'll try not to be too specific with this, but something that I've traveled to a lot of countries. I have had an amazing opportunity to go to really cool countries that they're living a wonderful life. And I've also gone to the most rundown, terrible third world countries. There's no running water, there's no electricity, and there's illness that's rampant. And what I see consistently is that people don't manage their finances. And I really am going to target the United States because obviously that's where I live and that's where most of your listeners probably are. When you have an asset, the definition of an asset is it puts money into your wallet. The definition of a liability is it takes money out of your wallet. When you have an asset, don't sell it. Hold on to that asset. It's far better to borrow against the asset than it is to sell it. The moment you sell it, you've extinguished it. It's no longer there. You have to work really, really hard to go find another asset. Instead, if you really need the money, then borrow against it. Because the cool thing about debt is it gets paid back over time. And then guess what? If you really need the money again, you just borrow from it again. Just never borrow more than what it's worth. The second thing would be on a lifestyle basis, and that's to be a principle-based person. I have a couple of favorite books. Traction being one of them, but another one of them is called Principles by Ray Dalio. I do not recommend you reading it. I don't recommend anybody reading it. Matter of fact, you should definitely listen to it. It's literally as big as a dictionary, and it is the driest book I have ever read in my life. You said that you could hardly get through Traction. That's how I feel about Principles. It is a huge book, 2.5 inches high, maybe. And Ray Dalio, if you don't know who he is, he's the owner. I don't know if he's the owner, but he's definitely the manager of the largest hedge fund that's ever been in existence in the world, like billions of dollars. And he wanted to this is long before AI, by the way. He wanted to create a system by which the computer would trade better than he did. And at the time, this was very hard. This was extremely complicated. And it took him years to develop this. But every time he made a trade, he would sell a stock, he would buy a stock, he would ask, well, why did I sell it? It sounds really too basic sometimes, but why would I sell it? And he would write down why he sold it. And then he would say, well, why'd you sell that much of it? You sold 2,000 units. Why not 1,500 or why not 2,500? Well, it's because of this, right? Well, when would you buy it back? At what would the market have to do for you to buy that back? And he would write that down, okay? So he asked him for years on every trade, Debra. He asked himself these questions and he wrote them all out. And he coded his brain. He literally took these, at the time he called them rules, but a rule can be bent. A rule can be broken, and it doesn't create like a tear in the fabric of your decision-making process, because you can always justify why the rule was bent or why the rule was broken. However, when those rules are correct 100% of the time, they cannot be bent, because if bent or broken, it would completely destroy your fundamental, the foundation of how you trade, how you make decisions. It's broken. That's no longer a rule. This is a principle. That's why he called the book Principles. So he started off with just making this a training thing. Then he turned it into his business thing. Then he turned it into his life thing. This is kind of what Ray Dalio has left on the world, if you will. Become a principle-based person. And so I don't have all the time to go into this, but I find myself constantly asking myself, how can I be a more principle-based person, right? I'm relatively young. All of our employees, except for one, are older than me. Some of them are definitely old enough to be my parents, if not my grandparents. Yet they come to me to make the decision. And so there's a lot of weight on my shoulders here to take care of my staff. And when I ask myself these questions, how am I going to sell this house? Am I going to buy this one? Whatever it is, in real estate or in software, are we going to go this way with AI, or are we going to have AI do this, right? There's all these forks in the road. Well, if you've never done it, how can you know what the right answer is? There's really only one answer to that question. If you've never done it, how can you know what the right answer is? It's to have a principle that guides you.
Love it.
I don't think that I have a third one. I think those are the two things that I'm most passionate about.
I can see that. I know that you do have some stuff to share with the listeners though, right? We've got a link that we're going to pop into the podcast notes.
Do you have the link, or am I putting it?
I've got the link, so we will put it in. We'll get that here.
If anybody is interested in real estate investing, I have 12 different courses where I teach people how to do marketing, sales and negotiation, deal structure like creative financing, deal analysis, raising private money, so on and so forth. These are the 12 things that you have to be competent in your business as a real estate investor. Otherwise, you will fail. Meaning, if you were to make a lasagna and forget the cheese, or bake a cake and not have the sugar, well, you don't have the crucial ingredients to make this. It's going to come out tasting weird. Your business is not going to operate well without these things. There's 12 things as a real estate investor that you must be competent at. I have a course for each one of them. I think that I had said this while we were recording, but maybe I didn't. From 2013 to today, I have signed up for 57 apprenticeships or courses or masterminds or whatever you want to call it, right? I've paid a lot of people a lot of money, the greatest of the greats that I can find in the United States, hopefully to one day myself be a little bit great. And I've taken everything that I've learned, I've distilled it down with simples and basic principles and outlines and created systems. Go figure. And I've put those in those courses. I sell those courses anywhere between like $27 up to $1,000. However, anybody who listens to your podcast can get them absolutely for free. They can choose one of these courses. It's your choice, by the way. Choose your own flavor, choose your own adventure, whatever you want to call it. You can go to that link that I just gave Miss Debra, and you can choose any course. If you need any help deciding which one, you can just scroll down and you can see a little description about what's in the course, how long the course is. Some of these courses, some of them are quite long. I think I have like a 20-hour course in there. I mean, this is full blown. This is not some thrown together thing that I did in a weekend. I actually spent a year and a half, almost a year and a half, 16 months taking and building the core curriculum before I even pressed record on the first one. So I took this very seriously in building this curriculum. It's built like a college course where you're building a fundamental 101 and then you're building 201. You're putting that block on top of the 101. So great courses. Choose anyone that you want absolutely for free.
That is absolutely very generous of you. They can choose anyone. And I already think you're a little bit great, so I wouldn't get too worried about that. And from my point of view, it's wonderful to hear that Keith also gives out traction books for his clients as well. And if anybody wants a traction book, they can also get in contact with me and I'll make sure they get a traction book for their business. But yeah, so thank you. Hey, so much gold in there. I've written so many notes and things here, but I think it really the things that really stood out for me is that systems and processes will set you free. And you've just got to keep them simple as you possibly can so even a toddler can understand them. That's the key to it all.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, Keith. I really appreciate it.
You're wonderful. Greatly appreciate it.